standing in front of you. A couple different reasons that kind of merge, two universities kind of hit together into each other. Last year, Oklahoma Wesleyan asked the question, what do we do for students as it relates to career services? What do we do to help you all actually get a job once you graduate? And while our SAS office does a little bit of that kind of work, we really looked at that question and answered it with we really need to be doing more. We could be doing more. There are a number of universities and colleges out there that have career service centers. And when you're getting ready to graduate, you can go to those career service centers and get advice on how to do a resume. You might see potential jobs that are open, things like that. But we're a little unique in that we're a little bit smaller. And so it really was not feasible for us to tackle that question of how do we provide career services by establishing a new department and hiring staff that could be there to assist you as students. So we had to think outside the box a little bit. And what we landed upon was a really cool software/service that's all web-based that I think you'll find really helpful as you go through the process of building a resume and knowing, as Dr. View said, knowing how do you put your best foot forward. Bottom line, when you're looking for a job and applying for a job, you are marketing yourself. And so how many of you all are marketing majors? All right, so you're at a bit of a disadvantage when it comes to marketing yourself. So by using Optimal Resume and going through training like this, hopefully you'll be able to put some tools in your back pocket that let you market yourself very, very effectively. So just as he said, you can actually get one of those jobs that is a good fit, that's something that's rewarding for you and rewarding for your employer because you're doing the kind of job that you're well qualified for and that you're enjoying. A second reason well, let me back up. So when we were looking at career services, we landed upon this Optimal Resume. It's a way for us to be very robust in the kinds of resources that you have available to you. But we do it all through this web-based program. So we don't actually have an office that's opened of career services, though our SAS office is trained in this. They administer our Optimal Resume site, and they're there to assist you. But I think that you'll find as you navigate through the site that all the information that you need really is on the site. As we looked at this product, we found that there are a number of universities across the nation that use Optimal Resume. So that was a good thing for us. We thought it was advantageous because of the fact that the more users that this organization, this company has, the more broad they can be with the kind of resources that they're providing and the quality of their product. So we were very pleased with it. Again, I think you will be too. The second reason, the other part of my background or the assignment that merged, these two universities that merged, is that my background is in human resources. So in my career, I've been responsible for hiring employees at every organization where I've worked, except here. I'm a little bit different here. But I've had that opportunity of sitting across the table, sitting across the desk from that person that's trying to market themselves and get the job that we have open. So I've looked at thousands of resumes over the course of my career and sat through and conducted hundreds of interviews. So hopefully the insight that I gained personally from fulfilling that kind of role in an organization will help in terms of some of the tips that I can pass on to you, maybe knowing a little bit more about things that you'll want to watch out for, some of the pitfalls that you'll want to avoid, things like that. Both in terms of the resume that you'll produce for yourself and also in terms of interviewing, imaging, things like that. Okay? Anytime you have any questions as I go through, please don't hesitate to just raise a hand or shout out. Okay? All right, so we're going to look at, first of all, this Optimal Resume site. Within the site, here's what we'll cover. There's 7 different modules. We won't talk in detail about a lot of them, but there are a couple that I think you'll find particularly helpful. So we want to spend a little bit of time parking on those modules and talking about them in a little bit more detail. I want you to be sure you know when you leave here how to establish an Optimal Resume account so that you can get onto the website and use the services and technology that's there. I think they have some really cool tools that are on the website that I don't want you guys to miss. So we'll also take just a couple minutes to dive into some of those tools. So as you navigate through the site, you can also launch those and take advantage of what's there. On Wednesday, we'll talk in more detail about resume tips and some of the things that, again, things you might want to avoid when you're writing your resume, things that you want to be sure to include as you market yourself. So we'll dive into more details about that on Wednesday. So we'll split this up kind of into 2 segments. And then hopefully on Friday, if time allows, we'll get into the concept of personal branding. When you put your resume forth, that's kind of your first advertisement as you market yourself. But certainly in the brand that you produce, how you look, how you interact with people, how you communicate, all of those things that kind of create your persona have a great impact on your ability to get the job you want. So on Friday, we'll spend a little bit of time talking about what we call personal branding and going through all sorts of details about that, okay? Any questions about what we'll cover? All right, so let's first look at these 7 modules within Optimal Resume. The first is a resume building module, and we'll dive in and use that fairly extensively. The next thing is a letter writing module. That's fairly straightforward, but it's a really cool way to be able to develop your own letterhead. One of the things that's important as you apply for jobs is that you're very consistent in your look. Let's think, for example, about Nike commercials. One Nike commercial looks very, very similar to another Nike commercial. The tagline's the same. What's their tagline? Just do it. You see that on every single commercial or marketing piece that Nike produces. You're going to see their logo on every single one, and it's the same every single time. So the commercial may be a little bit different, and maybe it's a different scene, a different actor, those types of things, but there's a consistency that you see across all of those different promotions from one company. Take that same concept and apply it to yourself when it comes to building your resume and any contact that you have with the potential employer. You want to have a consistency between all of the different things that you contribute or submit to that employer. Okay? So one of the things that you can very easily do within Optimal Resume is have that consistency by creating letterhead that has the same font, the same format, everything the same as what your resume looks like, as what a follow-up letter will look like. Any of those kinds of things, any of those pieces of material that you're going to provide to an employer or potential employer, you can have that common theme or that consistency from one to the next. Because you want to be sure when they get that thank you letter, they know, oh yeah, that goes with this resume. If they pick them up and they look completely different, they're going to be like, this is just kind of disjointed. It doesn't feel like these go together. So you want to avoid that. The letter writing module within Optimal Resume really helps you to achieve that in a very easy way. Because the templates are all defined in the same way, you can match them up very easily. Okay? Also on Optimal Resume is what's called portfolios. The simple thing about this module is it's kind of like cloud computing. It lets you take all these various documents that you'll create. You can also upload documents. Let's say you've got a class project, for example, that you want to be able to show a potential employer. You save that as a PDF. You can upload all that stuff into what's called a portfolio, so that you then have easy access to it. So as you're communicating, particularly online, as you're communicating with a potential employer, you don't have to think, okay, now where did I save that one file, or do I have that on this laptop, or where did I put that? All of it's right there in portfolio, so you can very, very easily go out and find those documents in order to be able to forward them and provide them to an employer, okay? Assessments is a kind of cool feature to me when you're at the point of writing your resume and when you're trying to kind of flesh out, what kind of job do I want? You know, I know what degree I'm getting here at the school and I kind of have an idea of what I want to do, but what does it really look like? You'll also very, very often in interviews be posed a question, what are your strengths? And a lot of people kind of freak out at that question. They're like, oh my goodness, what all am I supposed to say there? You also don't want to be too bland or too what everybody else is. I mean, can anybody guess what one of the things is I often heard to, what are your strengths? Has to do with people. I'm a people person. That's exactly right. If I heard that one time, I heard it a million times. I'm a people person. I'm a people person. Well, it got to the point where that meant absolutely nothing to me. Because once you hear that from 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 people, you start thinking, okay, obviously it means something different to you than it does to you. So now it doesn't mean anything to me because I don't even know how to interpret it anymore. Okay? So the assessment thing that's really cool is it lets you kind of launch through a bit of a self-assessment. I think they ought to call it self-assessment. It lets you go through a number of different questionnaires and stuff about things you like, things that you're good at, those types of things, so that at the end of that process, you can kind of have a list of, yeah, if I'm going to talk about my strengths, these are some of the things that come to the surface. These are some of the things that I want to be sure an employer knows about me. When I think about the kind of job that I want to get, these are some of the things that I know I enjoy doing. So these are these are the characteristics I want to look for when it comes to identifying a job that I might like. So that assessment tool, while it's not going to develop anything that you would give to an employer like the resume or the letter writing module, it will probably help you just to kind of get some things straight in your own mind when it comes to looking for a job and preparing for an interview. The next thing is an interview module, and we'll look at this in a little bit more detail because it's really very cool. It allows you to do a mock interview. How many of you all have been on a professional interview? I don't mean I'm going to do mow lawns over the summer break or that kind of thing, but okay, so a few of you have had that experience. It's very different, isn't it, from just I'm going to babysit for your kids, or I'm going to do that lawn mowing job over the summer, or even I'm going to be a cashier at the store that you own, that kind of thing. Did you find it different for those of you who raised your hand? A little bit? Some are more formal than others. But typically when you go in for a professional interview, it is very, very different from what you'd find from other interviews, in that they tend to be more formal, they tend to be more structured, those types of things, so that when you sit down, you need to really be prepared for the kinds of questions that you might get posed in an interview like that. This interview module allows you to see a lot of those questions and also lets you tape yourself. You can video yourself using your laptop. It'll video you, it'll pose a question, you get to answer the question, you get to see how you came across, things like that. Again, we're going to look at it in a little bit more detail because there's also some other kind of fun ways to use that. One of the ways that you can use that interview module is through what's called a video resume. I personally don't think in terms of an actual resume that a video would ever replace a paper resume that you'll put together. But you can use that recording feature in a kind of cool way. Think about this. What if you've gone for an interview, you like them, you really want the job, you're excited about the opportunity. Most people at that stage are going to write a thank you letter. Thanks for seeing me. I'm very interested in the job. It seems perfectly aligned with the strengths that I could bring to your company. Thank you for considering me. But you could go into Optimal Resume and very, very easily record a thank you to the person that you interviewed with. So rather than just doing it on paper, you could actually record yourself, upload it all within Optimal Resume, have all the functionality right there to say to the employer, thank you so much for taking time to visit with me. I'm very intrigued by the position. It's one of great interest to me. I do hope that you'll continue to consider my application. You email that to that person and two things happen. Number one, you're doing things different from other people. And whenever you mark it, when you want to draw attention to yourself, one of the keys is you've got to stand out. You've got to do something different than everybody else. So if what you're doing is sending a thank you letter, and the guy that's interviewed you gets thank you letters from 75% of the people that came in and interviewed, you've not distinguished yourself. But by sending a video thank you, I would almost guarantee you're one of the only people that would do that. Okay? So now you've set yourself apart. You've brought distinction to yourself and your application in a way that obviously is different from others. The other thing that it does is it puts your face with your name again. This seems kind of elementary, but I will tell you, if you talk to HR people who are willing to admit it, once we sit through a day's worth of interviews, we've seen people back to back to back to back, we grabbed a quick lunch, quick drink, back to back to back to back, more interviews. By the end of the day, I truly had trouble remembering. Now, who was that second guy that came in? I know he went to Oklahoma Wesleyan. Which one was him? Was he the guy that had that great experience with his last employer, or was that I mean, it just starts being mush in your head, because when you do them like that kind of assembly line, honestly, you do start to lose track of who it is you talk to and who said what and things like that. So when you, as a potential applicant or as a potential employee, send a video resume to me to say, not a video resume, but a video thank you, it's one more opportunity for you to put your face with your name. Years and years and years ago, like decades ago, people used to put their picture on their resume for this very reason. because it was difficult for employers to remember who went with what piece of paper, kind of thing. That is no longer a very legal thing to do. There's a lot of liability potential with that. So it has completely been abandoned. People don't do that anymore. But this is a way for you to voluntarily say, remember, this is me. This is what I look like. I was the second guy that was there that morning for all the interviews, that kind of thing. So it really gives you a good tool, again, to be distinct, to be different from what everybody else is doing, and to help get your name familiar and top of mind and things like that. The last thing that you can do within Optimal Resume is build websites. The cool thing about this is if you want to be able to refer a potential employer to a website where they can learn more about you, this is a very easy way to do it. There's no cost. It's all included within our subscription, so you don't have to pay to have a website hosted or any of that kind of thing. And you can put on your website all sorts of different information that you might like to. Let's say, for example, that you'd like to have recommendation letters. Maybe you've got a few letters from professors that you've had classes with, or people that you interned with or volunteer with, that type of thing, and they're willing to do a recommendation letter to you. You could put that on your resume website or on your employee application website, okay? You can include, again, projects. So if there's some projects that you've done during your tenure at Oklahoma Wesleyan that you're really proud of and you think are a good demonstration of the kind of work and the quality that you could bring to a potential employer, you could post those on your website. Those types of kind of supplemental information. I can guarantee you an employer is never going to ask you to provide things like, well, you know, give me an assignment that you're really proud of. Most of them won't do that for the kinds of jobs that I'm guessing that you're going for. If you're doing like a marketing job or a graphic design, then they're going to look at your work. But typically for other types of professional jobs where it's not kind of creative work, you probably won't have an opportunity to do that. But it still could be really cool if you say to an employer, hey, let me give you my website. It's got a little bit more about my background and my experience and what I believe I bring to the position here at your company. If you have a chance, please launch the website and just learn a little bit more about me. They can go out there and I guarantee you'll pique their curiosity. So then they are going to go out and they're going to start to go around that website and learn a little bit more about your background. Again, you're marketing yourself. It's just one more opportunity to get your picture painted for this potential employer. Okay? So you can do all that within Optimal Resume. Yeah, Bill.
Can you talk a little bit about what kind of jobs? When we say job, I think some of them may be thinking of a regular job that they go to. What are the other applications like? I'm sitting here thinking, we have students here that may want to go on, and I know we have a student that's in Europe playing basketball. Mm-hmm. That this could apply to something like that, couldn't it? It's not just a job. Mm-hmm.
I think as you go through, yes, absolutely. As we go through these modules, I think you'll be able to see that they can be crafted and customized in a way that makes the document very easy to create within this system. And then you can use it in whatever way fits your situation. Okay? So whether you're applying for a job, whether you're applying to grad school, whether you're looking at a potential internship, all sorts of different things like that, you'll see as we go through here that the system is very customizable to what it is you need. Okay? So I think it'll start to answer some of those questions as we do a quick demo. Any other questions at this point? Okay. Let's focus a little bit on resumes. Within the system, and you'll see this, I'll actually open the system here in a few minutes, but within the system there are 3 different ways to construct a resume. The first is to start from scratch, and that's literally as if you picked up a blank sheet of paper and started from scratch. Okay? The only thing different from a blank sheet of paper is that within Optimal Resume, once you establish your username and profile, the system will pre-populate or auto-populate things like the heading at the top of your paper. But other than that, if you go into the resume system and say, I want to start from scratch, you're looking at a blank piece of paper. Okay? For that reason, we don't recommend that you do it that way, because there's a much easier way. Okay? So kind of file 13 the fact that you could if you wanted to, but there's a better way. The second way is to review and use samples. The samples within Optimal Resume can be really good tools. They can give you some great ideas. If you've never done a resume before and you're not even sure what's it supposed to look like, what is a good resume, what are different things that you say for these different sections, What are different words I can use to kind of say the same thing over and over again? All of those kinds of things that probably spin in your head as you sit down and think, okay, I need to draft a resume. These samples can really, really help with that. It can let you easily see resumes that have already been produced, gives you ideas of how they're structured, what different formats look like, all those kinds of things. Here is the downfall of samples. Within the Optimal Resume site, you can click on a sample and actually choose to use this sample, where it takes that sample and opens it up into your active window and then lets you go in and just kind of edit whatever sections you want. So here's the downfall. If you work from a sample, you have exponentially increased the opportunity for your resume to be nearly identical to someone else's resume. Now this sounds far-fetched, but I will tell you this has truly happened. Me looking as an HR person, looking through resumes, I would come upon two that I could put together and hold up to the light, and other than a few words being different and their employer names being different, they were identical. The format was the same, the heading was the same, the objective was the same, all of those kinds of things were the same, because they'd gone to a sample and used a sample, and okay, John took out the John Doe name and put in John Jenkins, and Mary had taken it out and put in Mary Smith. So there were obviously some things that were customized about it, but it was, I literally, as I went through the stack, I got to it and thought, didn't I just read this? I swear I just read this objective statement, and flipped back and found the other resume that was exactly identical. I'm going to give you one guess what happened to those two resumes. Any guesses? Trash, that's right. Whenever an HR person is going through resumes, you have the yes, no, and maybe file. You get a stack going on your desk. Yeses, maybe, I'm thinking maybe, it kind of depends on what the quality of the other applicants are, but I might look at those again. And then the no, I'm not picking up that piece of paper again. Those two sample resumes went in the no stack like that. I didn't look at them again. Now, one of the things when you think about jobs, and you'll hear over the next 3 class sessions as we talk about this, it is brutal. So you can hear me say things like that and think, man, you could have missed out on a really good applicant because you didn't even give them a chance. That may be true, but it's a fact. That's the way HR people go through resumes. Take a guess how much time an HR person spends with their first look at a resume. There's been a study done of HR professionals. How much time do you spend looking at a resume before you decide which of those 3 stacks is going in? Any guess on how much time that is? 30 seconds? 2 minutes? You're flexible, huh? Any other guesses? 30 or less?
Okay, yeah.
7 seconds. The study found that HR people will look at your resume for 7 seconds before they decide which of those 3 stacks it's going in. That's not much time. And again, you'll hear me say things like that, and probably there's part of you that goes, well, that's not fair. It's brutal. It is a brutal process. You will get denied opportunities very quickly for little mistakes that you make, okay? So that's why things like writing your resume, using all the technology that's available to you, not taking a shortcut like taking a sample and just putting in your name and changing a few things, that will make it or break it for you when you're looking for a job. Those kinds of things in those 7 seconds will get your resume in the no stack. Okay? All right. So the third way that's available with an Optimal Resume, and there's some bullets here because this is the way that we encourage you to use Optimal Resume when it comes to your resume writing. It's called sections, utilizing sections. What this feature allows you to do is identify the 3 or 4 or 5 different sections that are appropriate for your resume. For example, one is internships. Does everybody here have an internship? No. So if I've got an internship, that's a great section for me, but if you haven't done an internship, why would you want that on your resume? Okay, so it lets you go in a long list of sections and lets you choose what's applicable to you. What are the sections for your specific resume that you want to be sure that you include? Okay, we're going to look at how to do Optimal Resume through this section resume builder. Okay. Another really, really cool thing about Optimal Resume, let me ask this question. How many of you all have designed your professional resume? Anybody done that yet? Cool, okay. How many of you who have done it needed to change the format? Like, oh, the font's too small, now it doesn't even take up the whole page, I gotta make it a little bit bigger, that kind of thing. Hassle, 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 right? Because suddenly you've changed the font and now the indents are all wrong. Or wait a minute, I changed the size and that made this go to a whole nother page. That kind of stuff gets really, really crazy. Within Optimal Resume, you have the opportunity to change the style, the template of your resume, and the system will automatically reformat everything for you. It's a really, really cool way to do it. So let's say, for example, the first resume you designed, you had everything centered because you thought, oh, this will be so nice and neat. I'm kind of a symmetrical person. This centered look is going to be really sharp. You get to the end of your resume and you're looking at it and going, man, this just looks kind of lopsided and weird. And you can easily click on a different template, a different design, say change it from centered to this other design that has everything to the left. And boom, one click and it'll do it for you and keep all your formats correct. Okay, so it's a very, very cool feature. I'll show you that when we're in the system. The other thing about Optimal Resume is there's tons of tips in there. I already talked about the samples that you can review. There is also simple things like thesaurus kind of idea. What are some of the words that might get used in an objective statement, a career objective statement? When you look through that assessment module, that module gives you some great ideas, again, of some strengths that you might want to note or different ways to say things, all those kinds of things. The system has tons of tips like that, okay? All right. We're going to talk about interviews probably on Wednesday. So let's grab this piece of paper. This is kind of your instruction guide. If you have a laptop and you want to open it up and do this as we go along, that's great. Feel free to do that. We're going to actually launch the site. oakwoo.optimalresume.com. Okay, when you do this, the first thing that you got to go to is that new users, click here. And here is a rule that you want to keep in mind. Yeah? Yes, great question. If you already went through this training and you've created a resume in here, the really cool thing about Optimal Resume is it's there forever kind of thing. If we ever end our subscription with Resume, Optimal Resume will notify you and say, you've got, I think it's 6 months from the termination of our contract to get your documents downloaded off of here if you want them, okay? So yes, if you create one, it's in here. We'll talk on Wednesday about the importance of customizing a resume. You can keep 4, 5, 6, 10, 20 different versions of your resume on here if you want to, okay? So yes, good question, it's all on here. The rule that you have to remember is that for your sign-on, to establish yourself as a user of Optimal Resume, you must use your oakwustudents.edu address, okay? That is only for your sign-on. How many of you don't use that as your primary email? Anybody? Okay. You don't have to use that email in your profile. So when you set up your profile and say, here's my email that I want to go on the top of all my resumes and I want it to be on my letterhead, and hey, Optimal Resume, if you send me any messages, this is the one I want you to use, sort of thing. You can use whatever email you want in your profile. But you must use your oakwustudents.edu to establish yourself as a user. That's how they validate that you're part of our group and you're allowed to log in under our subscription, okay? So that note is up here on that little sheet of paper that I gave you. All right. I am an established user, so rather than clicking new user, I'm going to simply click to log in here. Okay, so when you log in, you'll see I'm in the Document Center. If you go to Home, over down here, this Optimal Webinars, Live and recorded training for job seekers. That's one of the resources that you might want to keep in mind. I think it's a little hard to find because it's not on your Document Center tab, and Document Center is where you're going to spend most of your time in Optimal Resume. But if you happen to think of it, click back over to that home and you'll see these tutorials. And they've got some really cool ones. Most of them are fairly short, so you don't have to like kill yourself all afternoon. All right. Generally, you're going to remain in the Document Center. And you'll see here in Document Center are the different modules that we talked about. So the first one there is resumes. This is very, very user-friendly. You can create a new resume, which is where you'll start. You simply name it. What I would recommend in terms of your resume naming is, because I'm going to encourage you to customize your resume for each position, that you name your resume in a way that's specific to that job. So you may have your first and last name and then the company that you're applying to, or the name of the position, or something like that that helps jog your memory that that's the one that I'm going to send to ConocoPhillips, or that's the one that I'm going to send to someplace else, okay? Within this section, if you already have a resume, you can upload a resume so that you're not doing it just within the system. I think personally that's a hassle. I'd rather use the system because I'm going to have to put all the information in anyway. I'd rather not upload one. So I don't really suggest that. But again, customize this in whatever way works well for you. So if it's better for you to upload one, feel free to do that. All right, remember I said there's 3 different ways that you can tackle this resume building project within Optimal Resume. One is to browse samples. It's a great resource to go in and learn, but don't create your resume from there. The third here is this start from scratch. Again, not what I recommend. It'll make the task much more difficult than it needs to be. What I suggest is this center one where you browse section sets. When you do that, the first thing it's going to do, Optimal Resume is going to try to be intelligent on your behalf. So rather than listing all sorts of sections that they have available, they're going to ask you what kind of job you're looking for, so that Optimal Resume can suggest sections that you might want to include within your resume, okay? You can always add other sections. It's in no way meant to eliminate the opportunity to use other sections or to keep you from deleting sections that it suggests that you don't want. But it just hopefully will save a little bit of time on your part, because it's going to, again, try to be intelligent for you. So let's go in here and see if they have, let's see what we could do. Let's just do a management one, because again, it's just going to. So when I selected management, over here, resume sections, these then are the sections that it's going to suggest that I use on my resume, okay? I'm going to click continue, even though some of those I might not want to use at all, okay? So once you click continue, you can see, first of all, that on this document, it's pre-populated my contact information, my profile information, okay? Again, as you work through the document, you can customize it however works well for you. So this took all of the information that's in my profile and plugged it in on that header. But let's say, like, let's see how this says cell phone and it just left it blank. Well, I can easily just eliminate it, just remove it altogether. Or maybe my phone numbers are a home phone, local home phone, and permanent home. Maybe you're going to have your phone number that's here and your phone number that's in South Dakota or wherever you're from. You can very easily go in and simply add text to the words that they've already got, okay? So instead of cell phone, I might put permanent home phone number or something like that. So whatever works for your situation. I'm going to remove it because I don't want to have a second phone number listed there, okay? You can see it put those sections automatically on the page. So again, it keeps you from starting from a blank sheet of paper. One thing to remember that I found so difficult to learn as I started working with Optimal Resume is look to the right, look to the right, look to the right, look to the right. Over here on the right-hand side is where most of the commands exist. I kept looking at this like it was a Word document. And so I click on something, for example, and try to delete. And I'm hitting my delete button and thinking, why won't it let me take that section out? I don't want that section. I know I don't have to have it here, but it won't let me take it out. Look to the right, look to the right, look to the right, look to the right. It's almost always over here in this document toolbar section, okay? So you can see, I'm going to try and maximize this. Nope. The trash can is way over to the right there. Hopefully your resolution on your screen will let you see that a little bit more clearly. But rather than going into the document and trying to click delete, I got to look over to the right, and any of those sections that I don't want, I can trash can. So for example, that personal profile section, I'm not going to use that. I think I'll list most things under key strengths. So I simply come over here and trash can it. Am I sure I want to delete it? Yep, get rid of it, okay? So that section now is gone. I don't have to do anything else with that section. Maybe though, I'd like to have an objective statement. You'll see on here, there's nowhere on here that says what I'm looking for, what my career objective is, why I'm even applying for this job. So over here, again, look to the right, look to the right, look to the right, look to the right. Add a section. You can decide what kind of section. If it's an experience section, this system will automatically prompt you for key information about experience, like the dates that you were employed, the position title, the company that you worked for, things like that. So again, it's just trying to be intelligent on your behalf so that you're not just starting with a blank box. But if it's not that, I can choose select from this general section, and I can add in objective, okay? I can look for examples there very easily. All sorts of different things. Here's objective. There's all sorts, when I clicked on objective, there are all sorts of objective statements. So again, I don't have to necessarily start from scratch. Once I have these objective statements, you'll see this little plus, add. That means I just want you to take that and put it in my document so I don't have to retype it. So you can click add. The example's been added. Now when I close this out and go back to my document, there are those words. Okay? Once the words are there, I can easily change these however I want to.